It is mostly women, by a large majority. Their husbands at the peak of his career, and their careers over.
When I say I'm nervous, all you gotta do is say nervous. I'm in the valleys. Everyone.
Kind of strange to have a guy sitting here with a bottle in front of him.
Well, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy.
I think he's took my childhood. I think he took my childhood and some of my adulthood. Because I'm probably about 20 years or better behind. The average person.
But people thought it was going to be the miracle cure in the 40s. The man who originated the lobotomy won a Nobel Prize. lobotomized thousands of people.
Did he just ignore the fact that they had butchered his daughter?
Not to go learn America the Beautiful. Not to my estimation. Not to go learn
Miracle cure.
America the Beautiful.
Butchered his daughter.
Thousands of people. Nobel Prize.
Not to my estimation.
Childhood.
Not to go learn
Miracle cure.
America the Beautiful.
Butchered his daughter.
Thousands of people. Nobel Prize.
Not to my estimation.
Some of my adulthood.
Not to go learn
Miracle cure.
America the Beautiful.
Butchered his daughter.
Thousands of people. Nobel Prize.
Not to my estimation.
20 years or better beyond.
Not to go learn
Miracle cure.
America the Beautiful.
Butchered his daughter.
Thousands of people. Nobel Prize.
Not to my estimation.
father, brother, husband could, have this done to their loved ones very easily without a
Imagine
recourse.
somebody wanting to silence women. I just can't imagine. Shocking.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! In the name of God, now I know what it feels like to be God.
5 or 10 shots for just doing one thing. That was like being underground in hell. I wear that body and my heart stopped.
I'm tired, boss. I'm tired of all the pain I feel in here in the world every day. There's too much of it. It's like pieces of glass in my head all the time. Can you understand?
The skull-hurt cell in a wheelbarrow brought, stripped naked to the smoke, as in that case she ought. Neat's tongues about her neck were hung in open show, and thus unto the cucking stool this famous skull did go.
it's finally said and done. Yeah, that was, I hope that was as exhausting to watch as it was to perform. Yeah, I'm thrilled that y'all were able to make it here tonight. It took a lot of work. Even just today, getting this put together was, you came in screaming on 3 wheels, but we made it work.
Even the screen's done.
Yeah, the screen's out of here. But I wanted to say a few quick words that I had on the floor, so I don't have to spitball anymore. So just some shout outs and thank yous and such. So Alexandria, you've given me the chance to take my voice and do something with it that I can be proud of, and it will take a lifetime for me to explore this path that you've sent me down. To my wonderful sister Victoria,
Yes.
You probably did something on the order of like $1,000 to $2,000 of labor for this project. So if I can make it up to you, if any of you need someone who could run shows, call shots, make props, design projections, and put up with cacophonous noise for hours on end, you know who to go to.
Yes.
I know they're not here today, but I know Dr. Rosenberger might be on stream. Shout out to the Science and Tech Studies Department for giving me a new set of eyes to see the world with. Without that entire program, this project would have no legs to stand on, and I hope that you'll be able to show this video of the concert to your future students so they'll know what happens to them if they skip their reading responses. To Anthony and Jordan, I am deeply indebted to you, and not just counting the Halloween candy poker. I'll get you back. Some other quick shout outs to the Impact Lab. Thank you for people who showed up today. Y'all are my home away from home, so keep up with the good vibes. My dear friend Sherry Young, who I know is watching the stream right now, thank you for keeping me sane. I still do not apologize for making you read Berserk. And to Mom and Dad for letting me crash at your house. I promise I will get off of your insurance soon enough.
You live with me.
And to my wonderful grandmother, Grandma Marie. I wouldn't have been able to come here and do all of this if it weren't for your generosity. I'd say that I'm hopeful that after you've seen what I've been putting my tuition towards, you don't have second thoughts. But joke's on you, this is the last thing I got to do to get that degree in 3 weeks. So here we are. So with that, I wanted to open up the floor for some discussion. You know, this is a really intense concert, not just to perform, but to bear the weight of all this cruelty that I tried to encapsulate with this. Yeah, there's a survey on the zine. You should keep your zine so you can scan that QR code. Takes like 5-10 minutes. You'll be fine. But yeah, I imagine many of you have questions, comments, and most likely concerns. And before you ask, no, I don't know what the hell is wrong with me. Go ahead.
I'm really interested in archaeology, and so I was interested by the little poem from the Nag Hammadi library. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so each of the pieces took an extensive amount of archival research to put together, not just for the actual construction of the instrument, which now lies in ruins for the most part, but for lyrical things, it was a matter of in some cases it was just taking inspiration from the subject matter, but a lot of the times, a lot of the lyrics were like ripped straight from like texts and things like that. And that last piece about Escrava Anastasia is a lot of the previous pieces are like very depressing, and they depict these people being silenced in horrible ways. But Escrava Anastasia is kind of different because her story has only recently become popularized. She was popularized based off of that image that was shown at the end in the black and white, and basically became this folk saint in Brazilian religions like Umbanda and Candomblé. So she's a massive figure in Brazil as a patron saint for people who are being subjected to this kind of silencing and suffering. People who have suffered from sexual assault, things like that. And so there's lots of literature out there of people writing about her and kind of writing prayers to her and things like that. And one of the pieces was Escada Anastasia speaks, and that was the head of it. It's the quote going into it. And I just thought it was perfect for this.
What were some things that popped? Like moments that stuck with you, images, lyrics that popped?
Yeah, before you two were born, you were in Bahrain in the 90s. And there's other things too, but I was having some issues, like gastric issues, and went to the doctor and gave me a pill, and it was great. It was a tranquilizer. And your dad and I went to lunch, and after about 45 minutes when they hadn't brought us our drinks, he was like, something's wrong. Yeah, so it's not something they only did in the 60s.
Yeah, I mean, like
50s and 60s.
It established like these business practices and the expectations between patients and doctors where, especially before these substances were regulated, before people really knew the effects of them long term, like the people in the song said, like, you get pain values anywhere you go. And so it kind of, even though there have been increasing regulations on how you can distribute these kinds of substances, people still go to their doctors, and if there's something wrong with them, they expect to walk away with a bottle of pills. And doctors often will be like, okay, I know that this person doesn't actually need this, but it will get them out of the door because I'm pressed for time, and hospitals are increasingly understaffed. So if it's something that'll get people out of the door, then what's the cost?
Oh, I was so moved by this performance. Like, two of the pieces definitely made me tear up. The lobotomy piece, I was like, ooh, that one hit really hard. And your performance, I could clearly see how you were working with the video, and you were working with your instrument as your voice as the instrument and the mask. What did you learn during this performance? And performing in front of these people who know and love you, and these people who are so proud of you.
And don't always understand you.
Yes. How is it for you?
Well, at the very least, I need to give myself more leeway and longer wires. That's for next time, but that's mainly practical things. The weight of dealing with this sometimes kind of escapes me. You listen to these songs on repeat over and over again, and you watch the videos, you read the quotes, and it's just like you start to become numb to it. And I think that's kind of what the piece kind of is talking about, like with these people joking about, like, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than frontal lobotomy. Like, there are people who are still alive who had this procedure done to them, and yet it has become kind of like a joke because we've just been exposed to it and distanced ourselves from it. I don't know.
So interesting.
Being able to enter the performance space with that in mind is there's a lot of things to juggle, but that's an important one.
Just a comment on the jumper cables. When you pick them up, I thought it would be so cool if they sparked, and then they did. And I think everything was choreographed really well, and you did such a good job at getting the message across and being able to tell a story.
That means a lot.
And then when they sparked, I was like, wait, is that real? Is it going to hurt them? So what's going on here?
Yeah, not if I'm not getting any extra credit.
That's what the first thing when I started working here was Georgia Tech students will rock across glass to get 1 point.
Mm-hmm.
But how did you pick the order of the pieces?
So it's kind of a reverse chronology for the most part, because starting with the iron gag and the skull's bridle, people aren't necessarily going to know what that whole deal was because it's so distant. Most people had never heard of them. And so I thought it was important to start with things that people were more familiar with and move backwards in time to kind of see these connections and be able to extrapolate all the way back to see where the origins of these kinds of technologies are.
Since she asked the process question, I was going to say it feels silly to talk about process after an impactful presentation. But a lot of this, there's this interaction of words and music and visuals, and all sort of held under the like kind of conceptual framework, the STS stuff. What was the order in which they came? Did you like find a video and think, oh, I can make something out of this? Like, how'd you find the pieces? Because they fit together very well. So I've like had the experience of like, oh, I need a photo that says this, and spending so much time looking for it and then compromising anyway.
Yeah.
So the way the stuff fit together was really good. I'm curious what order those happened in.
So you may be familiar with the methodology of actor network theory. It's kind of an experiential thing. It's not really, it doesn't really have anything to do with actors networks theories or the hyphen between them, as Latour famously said. But it's kind of just this method of like finding connections where your experience leads you. Like you're going to be bombarded with a whole bunch of information that like could take you down a million different rabbit holes. This piece could have looked so many different ways. Like there's so many different pieces that I could have written about that would have easily fit into this context. But the one that got me going was I was doom scrolling through TikTok and I saw this video about the Tonguebiter. I'm like, wouldn't it be neat if I took this instrument of silencing and kind of inverted it, turn it into an amplifier for someone's voice? And there's actually someone at Georgia Tech at HCI who's doing some similar work that's been very inspiring to me. Richmond Wong. His work focuses on infrastructural speculation. So taking these invisible infrastructures or networks of technologies and being able to speculate how life would be if they were different in some kind of way. And so one of the methods he talks about is infrastructural inversion. So in this case, taking something that was used to silence someone, turning it into an instrument, lets you talk about all these people that are hidden through that silencing, whether it's the victims or the people who designed it. And yeah, from there, it's like you'll be reading the archival stuff, and it's like, oh, well, the Tonguebiter kind of fell out of use because they started sending people to mental institutions. And, well, what do they do to people in mental institutions? Well, they experimented with pharmaceuticals, lobotomies, the electric chair, things of that matter. And the first piece is kind of more related to like my own personal experiences and like why this matters to me, especially living in the political climate that we do. Like, people are becoming disenfranchised at an unprecedented rate right now. And one of the main attacks that I feel personally is like trans people being silenced. There's the whole like thread that pins this whole thing together is about pathologizing identities. So taking an identity and saying their opinion is worth nothing because they're mentally ill, or there's something wrong with them that cannot be changed without some form of violence to shut them up. And so, yeah, that's kind of my own personal stakes in it.
How many cuts did you get making that mask?
Yeah, making this thing, you really understand, like, going through the experience of this, even with modern tools and like pre-pressed steel sheets and angle grinders and all these technologies that would not have been available in the 15th century or 16th century, you understand what it feels like to have someone's head in your hands, right? To see, like, to be able to mold this against your own skull and feel like, oh, that's like a human is going to be in this, and just recognizing, like, kind of through this experimental, like, archaeological kind of approach, like, whoever was designing these masks or whoever was paying someone to design these masks must have wanted whoever was going to be inside this to suffer really bad, because it took a lot of work to make these.
Avoided the question.
Oh.
How injured did you get?
How injured did I get? Yeah, that was related. It's these tines are kind of sharp. The support struts here were a recent addition because I'm like, oh, I probably should try to not get tetanus from wearing this thing. Less than ideal. But it's surprisingly comfortable to wear this thing for extended periods of time. I mean, I was going around postering on campus wearing this thing, and getting a lot of weird looks. A couple people took pictures with me. Yeah, so even though it was used as an instrument of torture originally, I did my best to not subject myself to that. I think you had a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, how was it like wearing that to the performance, like for 40 minutes, but you've already sort of answered.
Well, it very clearly limits your perception, right? You're only able to see through the eye slits and a little bit underneath the eyeball. And that's kind of a blessing and a curse to some extent, because like you might have seen, I was struggling to like pick things up off the ground when I dropped them. Turns out thrashing might not be, I might have to reel it in on the thrashing a little bit, but it's also kind of nice just like not having to focus so much on like looking people in the eyes. And that was kind of like my experience walking around in public with this, when it wasn't just like, you know, dark and a bunch of lights shining on me. It was like, if I wanted to look at someone, I couldn't like side-eye them. I had to look straight at them. And that's a very uncomfortable thing to do. And so it makes you less likely to do that. You feel embarrassed maybe to look at someone while wearing this. And people feel embarrassed to look at you. People were like, you know, ducking their heads or like crossing the street to get to the other side. Yeah, so it very much is a jarring experience. But once you get used to it, it kind of lets me focus on the music and just on my body. Well,
It scared me with every iteration of the mask.
yeah, I would show up outside her office and like knock on the door, and then she'd open it. Like, oh!
I could beat that. It would show up in my living room. All right. Any last thoughts, questions?
Why the genre? Why metal? Any thoughts on it?
Yeah. I wouldn't describe all of it as metal, but that's kind of my training, if you want to call it, sitting in a car yelling to myself for hours on end training. But I feel like a lot of other genres be too, like, it wouldn't be serious enough for this kind of thing. Like, the idea is like, when you're wearing this thing, you want to scream. And often you were put in this because you were screaming at something going wrong in your life. So even though death metal and like heavy metal stuff, it has its problems as a scene. You know, it's very, very masculine. Very few places for women or non-binary people. But that just means you got to kick more ass.
Hell yeah! They need it for research.
But it's not being published or anything. It's just for making this less of a mess.
Don't call it a mess.
Jay.
Don't call it a mess.
Oh yeah.